Just a postscript on Kiochika, this man who begins with these marvelous prints we've just seen with the touch of melancholy, of a vanishing Japan, not just an emerging Japan, his sense of the night and the darkness. By the 1890s, he had emerged as a brilliant nationalist propagandist and produced some of the most stunning woodblock prints of the war between Japan and China that took place in 1894 to 1895. And they're in another VC unit where we deal with those early wars and Japanese nationalism and propaganda. You can take a glimpse at this. He came a long way, Jim.
He did.
And even in those later prints, he's fascinated with light.
Absolutely.
He's fascinated with innovation, and in this case, the light he's fascinated with is the explosion of guns.
Yes, yes.
It's like a different person. It's like a totally different person.
After the famous series of the Views of Tokyo, that was not the absolute commercial success that he and his publishers had hoped for. Then in this helter-skelter of Meiji politics, he became very active in political cartooning, cartoons that made their way to print format. It's usually some wonderful caricatures and images, often accompanied by a lot of text. He, and not just Kiochika exclusively, but a number of Japanese print artists, made some profit off of illustrating both the Sino-Japanese and the Russo-Japanese War. He's almost the perfect Meiji man. He's born in 1847. He comes into his majority, roughly 21, 22, just as Meiji begins, and he dies in 1915, just a few years after the Emperor Meiji goes off the stage. You know, in the Russo-Japanese War, film was available. Film footage was available. Certainly photography was. But one of the things that photography could not capture, for example, was the explosion. We're so used now to taking up our cameras and doing sequential shots that show just about everything in real terms, motion. So they really needed the print form to capture these heroic moments that you couldn't do unless you had a stop-action camera. So
They were heroic in Japanese eyes.
terms, yeah.
And they were incredibly violent.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, it was a very romantic nationalism,
Absolutely.
romantic militarism. And it's a world apart from the world we just went through with you, walked through, the Tokyo that we walked through with you today.
Well, it was a pleasure to take the stroll.
Thank you. It's a conservative, nostalgic, and romanticized perception, not of what has been gained, but what has been lost.
Exactly.
And I think Jim's point about Kahu's connection to Baudelaire is really important because that shows us that reaction is not necessarily something that comes from purely Japanese or traditional, but in fact that is a quintessentially modern emotion and modern reaction, the sense of being lost, that it's actually a universal reaction, even if it's couched in a loss of some kind of tradition or Japaneseness.
That's wonderful. To be a great traditionalist is to be very cosmopolitan.
Well, these prints are filled with all sorts of insights like this.